Hello everyone, my name is Apostate Aladdin. I'm temporarily awake from my virus-induced slumber. What an inflammatory title, I'm sure you're thinking. Aladdin, how could you say something so bigoted? What are you implying? Are you trying to scare people of Muslims? These are very good questions, but they shouldn't be directed at me. Instead, they should be directed at this da'wah man, Mohammed Hijab.
We have Muslim gangsters as well. We can't stop the gangsters from dealing with you or anyone else.
He also did a racism...
Black communities. And then go to Harlem or Detroit and see what happens to you. See if there's any gangsters there that will slice and dice you.
and some anti-Semitism for good measure.
You want free speech absolutism. Don't just deny the Holocaust. Mock it if you're a real man and see what happens to your career. Of course, we don't necessarily advocate such a position.
Why would he say any of that? What was the context? What do I think of it? Watch this video to find out. If at any point you find yourself agreeing with me or want to support me in standing up to these snake oil salesmen and wannabe thugs, give this video a like and consider subscribing. On August 12th of 2022, prominent ex-Muslim author Salman Rushdie was stabbed on stage in New York before giving a lecture. I'm not trying to cause hatred, but I will not mince my words. The attacker, as expected, is a Muslim. And today we will listen to what a Muslim da'wah man, Mohammed Hijab, thinks of the matter. Spoiler alert, it's basically racism, anti-Semitism, and violent threats. The last two are implied. I did say da'wah man after all. So Hijab published the video on August 18th, and the only thing he said about the attack itself was...
Many of you will be aware of the recent attack on one Salman Rushdie, an individual who was an open advocate against or detractor of Islam and the Islamic Prophet. Ever since that time where he wrote his book, he and the fatwa was by the corrupt states of Iran was declared upon him.
Referring to a fatwa issued by Iran in 1988, I believe, calling for the death of Salman Rushdie. That's it, he scapegoats Iran.
By the corrupt states of Iran.
He doesn't say this is bad and you should never do this, or Salman Rushdie didn't deserve to be brutally murdered because of words. That's because he knows that he cannot contradict Iran's fatwa because it is Islamic. Okay, so what's the rest of the video about then, if it's not about the attack itself? He spins it into this free speech absolutism protest and moans about how Holocaust denial is illegal.
Much of the West, in fact, most of the West, we don't see particular pieces of legislation which are aimed against things like blasphemy law. But we don't find the same free speech absolutists talk about other things which are in fact enshrined into legislation. For example, of course, Holocaust denial being one of them. Of course, we don't necessarily advocate such a position, just for the record, or want to antagonize our good friends from the Jewish community. But if one is truly a free speech absolutist, shouldn't one be lobbying against, with all vociferousness and vigor, shouldn't one be lobbying against such a law?
If your first response to a Muslim stabbing someone in the face is, how come I can't deny the Holocaust? Talk about being tone deaf. Read the room. Though I guess if the room is thousands of Muslims, then yeah, you are reading the room correctly, unfortunately. I'm going to entertain this distraction of an objection for just a little bit. To be honest, I am undecided about whether Holocaust denial should have any legal consequences in a broad sense. People can have wrong opinions about facts, and that's the main difference here. Holocaust denial is a blatant denial of facts. Documented, proven facts. On the other hand, blasphemy against Islam is often an acknowledgement of facts, like Muhammad scapegoating the devil for satanic verses when he makes a mistake. These two things, Holocaust denial and blasphemy or mockery or critique of Islam, have never and will never be equivalent. Blasphemy laws have always been used to suppress criticism and protect religion from scrutiny. Blasphemy laws have been the motivation behind lynching and executing people, whether it be by the book or not. On the other hand, laws against Holocaust denial are set to combat hateful anti-Semitic rhetoric, like the Holocaust being yet another Jewish conspiracy. I'm surprised that an Oxford graduate doesn't know this by now. And let me remind you, dear audience, that the topic is a Muslim stabbing a man for blasphemy. How does a guy get stabbed in the face and you have the audacity to spin it to some conversation about the limitations and consequences of free speech? Dawah men are masters of distraction, manipulation, and crying wolf. If there ever was a time to shut the hell up about Islamophobia and prove to people that they shouldn't fear Islam, now would be it. Doubling down and asking why you can't be anti-Semitic doesn't help. Besides, Holocaust deniers don't get shot, bombed, beheaded, or stabbed in the face. Do you want to take a stab at what happens to descendants of Islam? Pun intended. And Hijab didn't mention homophobia in this video, but it's extremely common to hear Muslims moaning about how they're not allowed to be homophobic, but people are allowed to poke fun at Islam or be Islamophobic. Again, bizarre position to take if you're claiming that Islam should not be feared or disliked. Now, say I deny the Holocaust.
You want free speech absolutism? Don't just deny the Holocaust. Mock it if you're a real man and see what happens to your career.
Say I'm the kind of person to believe what I'm fed by WhatsApp group chats. Say I'm also homophobic and very openly hateful against members of other religions like polytheists. In other words, I am a very common example of a Muslim in a Muslim country. Am I allowed to blaspheme against Islam now? Is that the toll that I have to pay? Make it make sense. Hijab then rants about white supremacy and oppressing minorities.
In fact, you need us more than anything else because we are the very community which you need to tell your children who will grow up being, in some cases, white supremacists, in other cases, at least fierce nationalists against any ethnic minority outside of themselves, to say this is what you're not. It is about the selective use of freedom of speech in order to inhibit and derail and diminish the rights of Muslim people who happen to be minorities in Western lands. That's really what's going on, isn't it?
Completely missing the fact that Muslims are not a minority where the fatwa was issued, and that the people who died because of protesting the book, because of the riots, were not minorities either.
It's not about freedom of speech, you liars. You are a liar. And you are all liars. It's not about freedom of speech.
Islamic blasphemy laws were never about protecting minorities, so why shift the goalposts now?
In Western lands like ours, and where there's laws in place and so on, the major centers of Islamic power have maintained that actually there's a great mafsada or detriment, a communal detriment into, like you said, trying to challenge the law in this vigilante way. And so we would say that when they ask us about the condemnation of this kind of thing, of individual doing this kind of things, we do so on the basis of Sharia consequentialism, quite frankly. Sharia consequentialism, that is to say the cost-benefit analysis. And that is a fine ethical standard, actually one that the whole of philosophical liberalism is based on, unless, of course, we're looking at Immanuel Kant's type of social liberalism. But the point is, therefore, it can be condemnable on the basis of breach of the peace, on the basis of mafsada, detriment, on the basis of this is something which is a barrier to entering the dawah, on the basis that this is something which threatens the Muslim. It can be condemned on all those bases, and we do condemn it, and that's not our strategy, it's not our way in dealing with individuals that insult the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay. So the Muslim Ummah has to play the docile victim when suitable and execute when PR is not a concern. Gotcha.
This is a strategic approach which advances the Islamic cause.
You're making it very difficult for me to say that taqiyya is not an actual thing. These da'wah men long for a false golden age when people were property, women were openly kept in their place, and fascism is righteousness. The scary thing is that I'm trying to convince the non-Muslims that this isn't a secret agenda among Muslims, but it seems to exist to some extent, to some large extent, among the representatives. Take this, for example.
But that is a reality. We, the Muslims, at 1.8 billion, which represent, according to Pew, will represent a third of the population of the world. 1 in 3, at least 1 in 4 now. You don't think we have gangsters? We have Muslim gangsters as well. And when you go ahead and attack the sacred symbols of Islam, although our approach is not to do so, we can't stop the gangsters from dealing with you or anyone else. We can't stop the Muslim gangsters. We can't stop the Muslim gangsters. We can't stop the Muslim gangsters. Just like if you go to Colombia and you speak about particular cartel in a specific manner, go to their area and be a man and speak about them.
So the title of the video makes sense now. So Islam relies on the thugs of the community, as Hijab puts it, to do the community policing. Otherwise, a simple state-enforced execution order will have to do. Don't be Islamophobic, people. Bend over and spread your cheeks while you're at it.
We're not condoning such a thing at all. We can't stop the Muslim gangsters.
He says he doesn't condone such a thing.
But that is a reality.
A reality of Islam. Every single day, something horrible is committed in the name of this religion, be it violence within the household, vigilante mobs, or a terrorist attack like this one. And how often do you see that caused by other religions? Maybe in the past, but these days the problem seems to be amplified with Islam. So thanks for agreeing, Hijab. This is the reality.
But that is a reality.
It's such a weird flex to flex that you have thugs in your community that you cannot control.
We, the Muslims, at 1.8 billion, will represent a third of the population of the world. At least 1 in 4 now.
But don't be Islamophobic, people.
Black communities. Why don't you speak about the black community in a racially insensitive way? And then go to Harlem or Detroit and see what happens to you. See if there's any gangsters there that will slice and dice you and chew you.
Whoa, what the hell is that about? Keep promoting racism against Arabs like you and me, but don't drag black people into this. Have you thought about why Hijab warns us of cartel members and thugs?
It's just like if you go to Colombia and you speak about particular cartel.
Is it because he cares about our well-being?
My friends.
Is it because he hopes to never see this kind of recurring terrorist attack happen again?
We can't stop the gangsters from dealing with you or anyone else.
No, it's because Hijab is a terrorist. Like I said, I'm not here to mince words. I'm here to mince da'wah men and chew bubblegum. And I'm all out of bubblegum. What is terrorism anyway? Let's use the definition put forth by the Oxford reference. It is the calculated use of violence or threat of violence to inculcate fear. Terrorism is intended to coerce or intimidate governments or societies in the pursuit of goals that are generally political, religious, or ideological. Hijab is inculcating fear by using the recurring examples of violence perpetuated by Muslim thugs, as he puts it.
We have Muslim gangsters as well. We can't stop the gangsters.
He intends to coerce governments or societies to stop blaspheming against his beloved Muhammad, which is a religious and ideological goal. One could also argue that it's a political goal, given how he's protesting free speech and laws related to it. So I would say that Hijab and many like him are terrorists. We often think of terrorists as those who go kaboom in a busy street or bring a plane down, but they're also the men who make you paranoid of getting stabbed in the light of day in any place or time.
We have Muslim gangsters as well.
Anywhere Muslims are present, blasphemers and vocal ex-Muslims should be afraid.
We, the Muslims, at 1.8 billion.
And yet, at the same time, the same men who use the tactic of fear will claim that their religion is unfairly feared. Pick a lane. Should we fear Muslims and Islam, or shouldn't we?
We can't stop the gangsters.
I don't know about you, but I, as a vocal ex-Muslim and blasphemy connoisseur, I'm more likely to be stabbed by a Muslim than a Jew, the cartel, or an African American. Please don't use that soundbite out of context.
And then go to Harlem or Detroit and see what happens to you.
So congratulations, Hijab. Your use of fear is working, but not the way you think it is. You think that people will tiptoe around Islam while you keep moaning about Islamophobia, but it's doing the opposite. It's justifying fear of Islam and the fanatics among its followers. The fanatics that usually look like you and talk like you and watch your videos. The wannabe halal thugs. I am glad we agree on something though. If you blaspheme against Islam, beware of Muslim thugs. Thank you for saying the quiet part out loud.
We can't stop the gangsters.
In all fairness, Hijab and a friend of his, Fahad Quraishi, posted a video where they shared more thoughts about the stabbing incident. They laughed like psychopaths during part of it.
He's helped us raise $500,000, is it? Maybe Salman Rushdie can help us raise some more.
Exactly, bro. Just for promoting the Islamic cause, because that will ban them up. So
yes.
So look,
they're going to get burned up as well in the hellfire. I mean, let's be honest about it.
If I don't succumb to illness again, I'll try to make a video about it. Oh, and Hijab begins and ends every video by asking for donations for a huge Islamic center in Norway.
Your brothers and sisters in IslamNet from Norway are establishing a masjid, a dawah center. So give generously and Allah Azza wa Jal will give you even more.
I don't know which idiot thought it would be a great idea to promote that center in the same video he spoke in about violence. You know which idiot. Or maybe it was some intern, I don't know. I think everyone should voice their thoughts to this Islamic center. How do you feel about it being funded by terrorists spreading terrorist rhetoric? Things like, beware of the thugs among us.
We, the Muslims, at 1.8 billion, we can't stop the gangsters.
And if we had our way, you'd be executed or deported. Both things that this man has said. So Norwegians, are you cool with that kind of institution coming to your country? More on that in another video. Thanks for watching. And as always, think critically and think for yourself. I almost forgot the intro.
Hear the roar.
Ooh, lion roar, alpha male. What are you, 17?
The most uneducated, low IQ individuals in all of society.
This is why they fantasize about big-tittied girlfriends in the afterlife. Incels have no game in this life.
So give generously and Allah Azza wa Jal will give you even more.
Hey, if terrorists can openly ask for money, I should have no shame in reminding you to join my Patreon, YouTube, or donate if you can. It really helps the channel grow.
With all vociferousness and vigor. So there's this juxtaposition which we find in the orientalizing type of literature that we see in books and academia, and of course on the media as well. Question is, of course, is such a thing even appropriate considering the circumstances? Now, that's what I want to say is,
this beard for brain loves to get his money's worth out of his thesaurus. The truly intelligent would try to convey their thoughts concisely with as few words as possible, but he loves to sound more intellectual than he actually is, and his followers lap it up.
freedom of speech is juxtaposed with Islamic blasphemy laws, for example, or things of that nature, or Islam and Muslims in general, or indeed Muslim reactions to desecrations of the sacred symbols of Islam.
The reason why there's this juxtaposition is because blasphemy laws inspire these terrorist attacks, if not directly punish blasphemers when legally possible. And Muslims' reactions to these events are a focus because they're often in support of the punishment of the blasphemer, or they're blaming the victim. It's not that hard to figure out, Hijab.
My friend Ali Dawa has made a very good point in his videos, a very, very good point.
I can't imagine being proud of calling this guy my friend. And just a reminder, these two terrorists openly say that if they had their way, someone like me would be executed.
Which is that he said, why do you specialize Islam in this discussion?
Jesus fucking Christ, it's because a Muslim stabbed someone because of blasphemy against Islam. How did you make it through university? Did you find your degree at the bottom of a cereal box? Cheerio, mate.
When Gutless Murray himself recently came and spoke to my good colleague Abdullah Andalusi, and friend and mentor, and tried to corner him because he is a gutless coward.
So this part is about some spat on television between two guys, and I can't be bothered to get into it. Link is in the description. What I find laughable is how this thug thinks everyone should drop what they're doing and debate him or box him just because he demands so.
Where you cannot and you will not debate people like me or Abdullah Andalusi or Ali Dawa in a one-on-one, Zishan, any of us in a one-on-one environment.
And do you really think that the only reason someone would want to debate this grape enjoyer is because they're afraid?
The most uneducated, low IQ individuals in all of society.
Juju, take your ego down a notch or two.
With that, I will conclude. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It is ironic and hilarious to me that he says, "Peace be upon you," to wrap up the video that he says in.
We have Muslim gangsters as well. We can't stop the gangsters from dealing with you or anyone else.
Not a modicum of self-awareness.
When the son of Adam dies, all of his good deeds are interrupted. They are finished. Except for three things. So give generously and Allah Azza wa Jal will give you even more.
And of course he had to guilt trip people and scare them of death to fund this Islamic center. Whoever's running this place, do you feel good about where your funding is coming from? Even within the Islamic paradigm, do you think that this is a halal source of income? Do you think that there's going to be barakah in this filthy money? Do you not care about where your funding is coming from? And that's just the public funding. I'm not going to speculate about anything else, but publicly we see where some of this money is coming from. And on that note, my cats, Iago and Apu, are starving. They live meal to meal, desperately meowing at the sight of kibble, gobbling up every meal as if it's their last. These poor, helpless animals need your support today. Please join my Patreon, become a YouTube member, or donate to my PayPal to save these cats from starvation. Special thanks to those of you who already do so. Thanks to Tasneem Khokhar, Wesley Potts, Taylor, Munir, Abdullah Samir, Quicksode, Fred Pallison, also Apostate, Tim, Annie, Desi Nia, Reason on Faith, Rico, Benjamin Iota, Troy, Zahira, Christopher Rank, and Kausar. Save the cats. Donate now.
You want It's not about freedom of speech, you liars. We have Muslim gangsters as well. This is a strategic approach which advances the Islamic cause. I mean, let's be honest about it. That's really what's going on, isn't it?